8 most dangerous archaeological discoveries in history that even top experts can't explain. The ancient world has always been filled with secrets buried for thousands of years. Yet when those secrets are finally uncovered, they make the entire world question whether what we know about history is really the truth. There are ancient skeletons discovered alongside bizarre burial rituals that have never been recorded in any historical text. There are enormous cities hidden deep beneath the earth that no one ever imagined existed. And there are ancient DNA discoveries powerful enough to rewrite the history of entire civilizations. But perhaps the most unsettling part is that even today, many of these mysteries still have no definitive explanation. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ancient History. This is the place where we travel back through time to explore lost civilizations, groundbreaking archaeological discoveries, and the secrets that history has struggled to keep buried beneath thousands of years of dust. If you're fascinated by true stories that are even more thrilling than fiction, then today's video is one you won't want to miss. Why do I say that? Because every archaeological discovery is like a missing piece of the past. Some pieces help us understand history more clearly, while others completely overturn everything we once believed. And the deeper archaeologists dig, the more they realize that the story of human history is still filled with countless gaps waiting to be filled. Who knows? Even at this very moment, countless incredible secrets may still be lying silently beneath our feet, waiting for the day they are finally brought to light. So which discoveries have left archaeologists completely astonished? Which mysteries still cannot be explained by modern science? And could there be a discovery powerful enough to change the way we understand humanity's past? Join me as we begin this incredible journey through some of the most astonishing real archaeological discoveries ever made. Discoveries so extraordinary that they have left the entire world in awe. 2 7th century skeletons rewrite the history of the origins of medieval England. What if I told you that the people living in England more than 1,300 years ago were not descended solely from European populations? Many people would probably agree with that assumption because it was a belief shared by numerous historians and researchers for many years. But once again, modern science has shown that history is full of surprises. Thanks to just 2 skeletons that lay undisturbed beneath the earth for more than a millennium, scientists uncovered evidence that could fundamentally change the way we understand medieval England. Even more astonishing, these 2 individuals carried ancestry that traced back to West Africa, thousands of miles away from England. The story begins with 2 skeletons excavated by archaeologists from 2 ancient cemeteries in England. One was discovered at Updown in Kent, while the other was unearthed at Worth Matravers in Dorset. Both individuals were determined to have been buried during the 7th century, more than 1,300 years ago. For many years, these graves were considered ordinary archaeological remains from the Anglo-Saxon period. However, as ancient DNA technology advanced, scientists decided to re-examine the skeletons in hopes of learning more about the people buried there. When the findings were finally published in a new study in the scientific journal Antiquity, the results stunned researchers. Genetic analysis revealed that both individuals carried ancestry originating from West Africa. This was not only a fascinating discovery, it also became the first direct genetic evidence suggesting that England had connections with sub-Saharan Africa during the early Middle Ages. Just imagine this for a moment. More than 1,000 years ago, when long-distance travel was incredibly difficult, West Africa and England were separated by thousands of miles. So how did people with West African ancestry become part of communities living in England? That very question prompted the research team to conduct an even more detailed analysis of the DNA. The results showed that although both individuals carried mitochondrial DNA associated with Northern European maternal lineages, analysis of their autosomal DNA revealed unmistakable genetic signatures indicating that one or more of their grandparents or other close ancestors had originated in West Africa. This finding is incredibly significant. It suggests that this was not the legacy of an ancient migration that occurred tens of thousands of years earlier. Instead, the genetic mixing happened relatively close to the lifetimes of these 2 individuals. In simpler terms, their ancestors most likely traveled directly to England or married local people only a few generations before these individuals were born. That is precisely what makes this discovery so valuable. It demonstrates that during the early Middle Ages, people were not simply exchanging goods, cultures, and religious beliefs. They were also migrating, settling in new lands, and building families together. To better understand the historical context, archaeologists continued studying the two cemeteries where the skeletons were found. The cemetery at Updown in Kent is located near Fingalsham, an important royal center during that period. According to Professor Duncan Sayer of the University of Central Lancashire, Kent had long served as a bridge connecting England with continental Europe. During the 6th century in particular, the region came under strong Frankish influence, to the point that many scholars refer to this era as Kent's Frankish period. Its strategic location helped create extensive trade networks and political relationships, making it possible for people from many different regions to travel to and settle in England. Meanwhile, the cemetery at Worth Matravers in Dorset was situated on the edge of the Anglo-Saxon cultural sphere. Although the two sites occupied very different locations, both suggest that England during this period was far more connected to the outside world than many people have traditionally imagined. The DNA was not the only source of evidence. Artifacts buried alongside the skeletons also provided valuable clues. At the Updown grave, archaeologists discovered a vessel believed to have been imported from Frankish Gaul, along with a unique spoon. Researchers believe the spoon may have been associated with the Christian faith or reflected connections to the Byzantine Empire. These seemingly modest objects turned out to be missing pieces of a much larger puzzle, helping researchers reconstruct the extensive trade routes, diplomatic relationships, and vibrant cultural exchanges that flourished across Europe more than 1,300 years ago. But perhaps the most surprising discovery for archaeologists was the way these two individuals had been buried. They were not treated as outsiders or members of a lower social class. On the contrary, both received formal burials comparable to those of respected members of the local community. This strongly suggests that they held a recognized social standing and were accepted and respected by the people around them. Taken together, these findings provide compelling evidence that people from different ancestral backgrounds integrated into English society far more naturally than historians once believed. The 3,600-year-old infant skeletons discovered beneath a dragonstone in Armenia. Have you ever wondered what would happen if an ancient stone resting silently among the mountains for thousands of years suddenly revealed a secret that no archaeologist had ever witnessed before? You know, the world of archaeology is full of fascinating surprises. Some discoveries leave the world amazed because of their incredible treasures of gold, silver, or priceless artifacts. But there are also discoveries that contain no gold at all, yet still keep scientists searching for answers for years. The story of two infant skeletons discovered in Armenia is one of those mysteries. The story began when archaeologists conducted excavations at the Dragonstone site in the village of Lakashin, located along the northwestern shore of Lake Sevan in Armenia. The excavation was carried out by specialists from the National Academy of Sciences of Armenia in Yerevan, and the results of their research were later published in a study on Science Direct. At first, the team's goal was simply to learn more about the mysterious ancient stone monuments that had stood on this highland plateau for thousands of years. But the deeper they dug into the ground, the more they realized they were approaching a discovery unlike anything previously seen in Armenian archaeology. The first feature to capture the researchers' attention was a massive stone monument known locally as a dragonstone, or Vishapakar. These monuments were carved from single blocks of basalt and range in height from approximately 5 to 18 feet. They have stood across the Armenian highlands for thousands of years and have long been the subject of intense debate among archaeologists. What makes these dragonstones so unique are their remarkably detailed carvings. Their surfaces depict fish heads, snakes, and most notably Vaishaps, mythical water dragons that appear in Armenian folklore. Most dragonstones were erected near mountain springs or ancient irrigation canals. Because of this, many scholars have long believed they were closely connected to water, religious beliefs, or sacred rituals that researchers still do not fully understand today. But the most astonishing discovery was not found on the surface of the monument. It was hidden directly beneath it. During the excavation at Lakashin, archaeologists uncovered a particularly significant dragonstone dating to approximately the 16th century BC, making it nearly 3,600 years old. Carved into the monument was the image of a sacrificial bull. Strangely, a stream of liquid was shown flowing from the animal's mouth. According to the researchers, this liquid may have symbolized water, blood, or perhaps a sacred combination of both within ancient religious beliefs. Then, as soon as the stone monument was carefully lifted, the research team could hardly believe what they saw. Hidden beneath the dragonstone was a secret burial pit that no one had ever known existed. As archaeologists carefully removed layer after layer of soil, they discovered the skeletons of two infants placed side by side. The discovery was completely unexpected because until now, there had been no evidence that these ancient dragonstones had ever been associated with burial rituals of this kind. To learn more about the identities of the two babies, scientists conducted ancient DNA analysis. The results were even more surprising. Both infants shared the same mitochondrial DNA sequence, indicating that they were very closely related. Based on the development of their skeletal remains, experts determined that both babies were only about 2 months old when they died. In other words, they were most likely members of the same family, possibly siblings or close relatives. The burial contained far more than just human remains. Archaeologists also uncovered numerous valuable artifacts that provided important insights into the lives of the ancient community that once lived there. Among the discoveries were painted pottery fragments, a bronze hairpin, an agate bead, a bone needle, and a piece of obsidian, a volcanic glass so sharp that prehistoric people commonly used it to manufacture tools. Each artifact represents another small piece of the puzzle, helping researchers reconstruct the daily life, material culture, and religious beliefs of the people who lived in Armenia thousands of years ago. What makes this discovery truly extraordinary, however, is not just the artifacts or the DNA evidence, but the burial itself. According to Professor Arsen Bobokyan, the study's lead author and a researcher at the National Academy of Sciences of Armenia in Yerevan, child burials from the late Bronze Age in Armenia are already extremely rare. Finding two closely related infants buried together directly beneath a dragonstone carved with the image of a sacrificial bull is a one-of-a-kind discovery, something that has never before been documented in the archaeological history of Armenia. For that reason, the discovery has raised a long list of questions that scientists still cannot fully answer. Were these two babies part of a unique religious ritual? Why were they buried directly beneath a sacred monument associated with water and sacrifice? What did the image of the bull and the mysterious stream of liquid flowing from its mouth symbolize to the people who lived nearly 3,600 years ago? To this day, these questions remain unanswered, waiting for future discoveries to reveal the truth. So what do you think? Why do you believe these two infants were buried beneath a sacred dragonstone? Was it part of a religious ceremony, a symbol of spiritual belief, or could it conceal an even more heartbreaking story? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's explore this fascinating mystery together. The skeleton of a young girl, found with a sparrow skull in her mouth, reveals a mysterious ritual no one has been able to explain in a Polish cave. The story begins in Tunel Wielki Cave, located on the Kraków-Częstochowa upland, also known as the Polish Jurassic Upland, near the village of Ojków in Poland. During excavations at the cave, archaeologists from the Institute of Archaeology at Jagiellonian University in Kraków uncovered a small grave lying quietly beneath layers of rock and soil. At first, no one expected this discovery to become the focus of international archaeological attention. But as researchers examined the burial more closely, the secrets hidden inside became increasingly unsettling. After carefully excavating the grave, archaeologists determined that the remains belonged to a girl between 10 and 12 years old. To establish exactly when she had lived, the research team collected bone samples for radiocarbon dating. The results showed that the child had been buried during the second half of the 18th century or the beginning of the 19th century, meaning she lived a little over 200 years ago. However, what drew the experts' attention was not the age of the grave, but the condition of the girl's skeleton. The bones revealed clear signs that she had endured an extremely difficult life. She had suffered from severe malnutrition, and her body had not developed as healthily as that of other children her age. Simply by examining her skeletal remains, scientists were able to picture a childhood marked by hardship and deprivation. But that was only the beginning. While carefully cleaning the skull, the research team made an astonishing discovery. Inside the girl's mouth, they found a small object. After a detailed examination, they identified it as the skull of a sparrow. The discovery was already extraordinary, but it didn't end there. Resting beside the girl's cheek, archaeologists found a second sparrow skull that had been deliberately placed next to her face. Just imagine being the first person to uncover such a scene. Wouldn't it send chills down your spine? Why a sparrow? Why was the skull of such a small bird placed inside the mouth of a child, while another was carefully positioned beside her face? Was this part of a unique burial ritual, or simply an extremely rare occurrence? To answer those questions, the research team expanded its investigation. They compared the burial with numerous archaeological records, examined ancient funerary customs from across Poland, and even studied burial traditions from ancient Scandinavian cultures. Yet the results only deepened the mystery. Dr. Michał Wajenka, an archaeologist at the Institute of Archaeology of Jagiellonian University in Krakow, explained that the researchers found no burial practice directly comparable to this unusual case. That suggests the ritual may have been extraordinarily rare, or perhaps even completely unique. Although the team has not reached a definitive conclusion, they have proposed one intriguing hypothesis. According to Dr. Wajenka, birds were regarded in many ancient belief systems as symbols of the soul, or as creatures capable of guiding the spirits of the dead into the afterlife. If that interpretation is correct, placing a sparrow skull inside the girl's mouth may have held deep spiritual meaning, serving as a way to help her soul find its path to the next world. For now, however, this remains only a hypothesis, as there is still no conclusive evidence to prove it. Another remarkable aspect of the discovery is what researchers did not find. After conducting extensive examinations, experts found no signs of trauma anywhere on the skeleton. They also discovered no evidence of violence or any clear indication of what had caused the girl's death. Aside from the long-term effects of severe malnutrition and the two sparrow skulls placed in such a mysterious manner, almost everything else remains unknown. That uncertainty has made the case even more puzzling. To this day, the girl's identity remains a complete mystery. Where did she come from? Who was her family? Why did her loved ones choose such an unusual burial ritual? Or was this a tradition practiced only by a small community that history never recorded? For now, those questions remain unanswered, waiting for future discoveries to shed more light on the mystery. As you can see, archaeology is about far more than uncovering ancient artifacts or buried treasure. Sometimes, a single tiny detail, like the skull of a sparrow, is enough to raise profound questions about the beliefs, culture, and lives of people who lived centuries ago. Every new discovery is another piece of history's puzzle, and only when enough of those pieces come together can we begin to understand what truly happened hundreds of years ago. Underground city, covering nearly 108 million square feet, hidden beneath a 1,000-year-old castle. What if I told you that beneath the ruins of an ancient castle, one that most people believed was nothing more than a crumbling relic, there lies an enormous underground city that remained buried for thousands of years? Would you believe it? This wasn't just a few secret chambers or a small escape tunnel built for wartime. It was an entire underground world, complete with a church, an advanced water distribution system, residential districts, armories, and massive structures capable of housing thousands of people. Even more astonishing is the fact that this hidden city lay silently beneath people's feet for centuries, with almost no one aware of its existence. It wasn't until archaeologists began excavating the site that this extraordinary secret slowly emerged, leaving researchers completely stunned. Why was this underground city built? Who were the people capable of creating such an incredible feat of engineering? And how many more secrets are still buried beneath layers of rock and soil? To answer those questions, let's travel to southeastern Turkey and explore one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries of recent years. Our story begins at Zerzevan Castle, also known as the Fortress of Samachi, located in Diyarbakir province in southeastern Turkey. During archaeological excavations at the site, scientists made a discovery that far exceeded their original expectations. Directly beneath the foundations of the ancient castle, they uncovered evidence of a multi-level underground city estimated to cover nearly 108 million square feet. The sheer scale of the discovery astonished even veteran archaeologists because it revealed that this was far more than a simple shelter. It was an entire carefully planned settlement. While only weathered stone walls and ruined fortifications remain above ground, an entire city capable of supporting thousands of residents exists beneath them. Naturally, this raises an obvious question. Why would ancient people invest such enormous effort into building an entire world underground? As the excavation expanded, more remarkable discoveries continued to emerge. Surrounding the castle, archaeologists uncovered massive defensive walls and watchtowers, proving that this location once served as a military stronghold of tremendous strategic importance. Yet the greatest surprise remained underground. The hidden city contains not only interconnected passageways linking different sections, but also a church and a sophisticated water canal system stretching for several miles, suggesting that its inhabitants had carefully prepared to survive for extended periods without depending entirely on the outside world. But the discoveries didn't stop there. During the excavation, experts also uncovered an Assyrian seal carved into a stone block dating back roughly 3,000 years. This remarkable find suggests that people may have lived in, or at least used, the area long before Zerzavon Castle itself was constructed. Every artifact recovered is like another piece of an enormous historical puzzle, helping researchers gradually reconstruct the rich past of a region that once stood at the crossroads of several great civilizations. Zerzavon Castle itself has an extraordinary history. According to archaeological records, the fortress was originally constructed by the Roman Empire during the 3rd century AD as a frontier military outpost intended to defend the empire's eastern border. Over the following centuries, particularly from the 3rd through the 5th centuries, it was repeatedly expanded, reinforced, and remodeled into an even stronger military fortress. After thousands of years and countless wars, only ruins remain today. Yet the site's appeal has never faded. Each year, hundreds of thousands of visitors travel to Zerzavon Castle, even though its main visitor center has yet to be completed. According to local legend, during times of peace, roughly 1,500 people, including soldiers and civilians, lived safely within the fortress walls. However, whenever war broke out, residents from the surrounding countryside fled to the castle for protection. During those times, the population inside the fortress may have swelled to as many as 10,000 people. If these accounts are accurate, then constructing an enormous underground city beneath the castle would have been a practical solution for protecting thousands of people during prolonged military sieges. As archaeologists continue their research, they are becoming increasingly convinced that the true size of this ancient settlement is far greater than what has been uncovered so far. To date, researchers have identified only about 6 residential districts located inside and around the castle complex. However, based on geological evidence and extensive surveys, experts estimate that approximately 100 additional residential areas may still lie buried deep underground, waiting to be discovered. That means everything we know today could represent only a tiny fraction of this immense hidden city. Even more remarkable, the newly uncovered structures include not only homes, but also administrative buildings, armories, and numerous other facilities designed for specialized purposes. With every shovel of earth removed, archaeologists seem to bring history one step closer to the present, revealing secrets that had remained hidden for thousands of years. Today, excavations at Zerzavon Castle are still ongoing. Researchers hope that future discoveries will help explain why the ancient builders constructed such a vast underground city, how they organized daily life beneath the surface, and how many important structures are still concealed below. Because who knows? The city's greatest secrets may still lie buried beneath layers of rock and soil that no human being has ever touched. 2,000-year-old Egyptian mummy hid a secret that shocked the entire world. A coffin had remained undisturbed for nearly 2,000 years in the land of ancient Egypt. At first glance, it seemed to be nothing more than an ordinary historical artifact. But when scientists decided to open it using modern technology, they uncovered a secret so astonishing that it surprised even experienced archaeologists. What's even more remarkable is that for more than a century after it was excavated, no one knew the truth hidden beneath its layers of linen wrappings. It sounds like something straight out of a movie, doesn't it? But surprisingly, it really happened. The story began with an archaeological discovery made in 1910 when archaeologists unearthed an extraordinary mummy at the archaeological site of Hawara in Egypt. After being transported for further study, the mummy eventually became part of the collection at the Bloch Museum of Art at Northwestern University in the United States, where it was given the name Hawara Portrait Mummy No. 4. For more than 100 years, it remained one of the museum's most mysterious mummies because beneath its linen wrappings was an exquisitely painted portrait depicting the face of an adult woman with striking, captivating eyes. According to researchers, the mummy dates back to approximately the 1st century AD, when Egypt was under the rule of the Roman Empire. This was also a period marked by a unique funerary tradition. Instead of wrapping the deceased solely in linen, as had been customary for centuries, Egyptians began attaching highly realistic painted portraits of the deceased to the outside of the mummy. Professor Stuart Stock, the lead author of the study, explained that although thousands of mummies were originally created in this style, only about 100 to 150 of these portrait paintings have survived to the present day. That is precisely why Hawara portrait mummy number 4 has long been considered an exceptionally valuable treasure. However, the most astonishing revelation came only recently, when scientists decided to examine the mummy using CT scanning technology, allowing them to see inside without removing a single layer of wrapping. This advanced imaging technique creates detailed three-dimensional images of the skeleton and objects hidden deep inside while preserving the artifact completely intact. Then the results appeared, and everyone was left speechless. The portrait on the outside clearly depicts an adult woman, but the skeleton inside tells an entirely different story. By analyzing the bone structure and the development of the teeth, experts determined that the individual inside the coffin was actually a little girl who was only about 5 years old. Just think about that. For more than a century, everyone believed this was the mummy of an adult woman. Yet a single modern CT scan completely overturned that assumption. Isn't that incredible? The analysis also revealed something equally fascinating. The girl's body showed no evidence of broken bones or any major physical injuries before her death. That suggests she most likely died from an illness or some other natural cause that still cannot be identified today. As researchers examined the mummy more closely, they measured the child's body at approximately 36.9 inches, or nearly 37 inches, from the top of the skull to the soles of the feet. Including the outer wrappings, the mummy measured about 2 inches longer. Although the mummy is relatively small, its interior contains numerous features that surprised experts. CT images also revealed 36 long, needle-like objects distributed throughout the body. Among them, 11 were located around the head and neck, 20 were concentrated near both feet, and the remaining 5 were found in the upper torso. At first, these mysterious objects sparked all kinds of unusual theories. However, after careful analysis, scientists concluded that they were most likely thin metal wires or small nails used to secure the body's position during the mummification process, helping preserve its shape for thousands of years. The surprises didn't end there. CT imaging also detected an unusual layer of material covering the outer linen wrappings. Experts believe this material may have been a mixture of mud or an adhesive substance used by ancient Egyptian embalmers to bind the linen strips together, making the entire outer covering stronger and more durable over time. Perhaps the most intriguing discovery of all was an extremely small object hidden deep within the wrappings near the abdomen. The object is oval-shaped and measures only about 0.28 inches in length, less than 0.3 inches. It was identified as being made of calcite. Despite its tiny size, researchers believe it may actually be a protective amulet placed inside the mummy by ancient Egyptian priests. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, amulets like this were intended to safeguard the soul of the deceased, protecting them from evil and ensuring a safe journey into the afterlife. Even so, the object's greatest secret remains unsolved. Because today's CT images still lack the resolution needed to reveal every tiny detail on its surface, scientists have not yet been able to determine exactly what shape it has or what symbols may be carved into it. Perhaps somewhere inside this coffin, which has existed for nearly 2 millennia, there are still secrets waiting for future technology to uncover. And that is exactly what makes archaeology so fascinating. Every mummy, every ancient artifact, and every ancient tomb is like a history book whose final chapters have yet to be read. Sometimes, all it takes is one breakthrough in science to awaken secrets that have slept for thousands of years, revealing answers no one ever expected. More than 100 human skeletons in the chilling Maya, sacrificial ritual beneath the sacred cenote of Chichen Itza. Have you ever imagined that, at one point in human history, There was a place where people willingly brought their most beautiful young girls to be thrown into a deep well simply because they believed it would please the gods? If not, then join me on a journey to the ancient city of Chichen Itza on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, once one of the most powerful political and religious centers of the Maya civilization. Here, there is an enormous natural sinkhole filled with water, revered by the Maya as the sacred cenote. To them, it was far more than just a source of fresh water. It was believed to be a gateway connecting the human world with the gods, especially the rain god, the deity who ruled over rain, water, and agricultural fertility. According to surviving ancient Maya records, whenever the region suffered from prolonged drought, the people believed that the rain god had become angry. To restore fertile fields and bring rain back to the parched land, they felt compelled to perform a very special sacrificial ceremony. The offering was not an animal or a valuable possession, but a 14-year-old virgin girl. The Maya believed that the chosen girl was not being sent to her death. Instead, they thought that after entering the cenote, she would become a servant of the rain god and live forever in a world of abundance, where she would enjoy fine food, beautiful clothing, and eternal happiness. Because of this deeply rooted belief, the ritual was regarded as a great honor rather than a tragic sacrifice. Remarkably, these ceremonies were not performed only during times of disaster or drought. Even in years of favorable weather and plentiful harvests, Maya priests would select the most beautiful young woman to offer to the rain god as a gesture of gratitude for blessing them with peace and prosperity. This reveals just how deeply religion was woven into every aspect of Maya's spiritual life, with nearly every significant event accompanied by sacred rituals. Whenever the ceremony took place, people from across the region gathered at the temple beside the sacred cenote to witness this holy event. The temple itself was an imposing structure, measuring approximately 197 feet long and nearly 98 feet tall. Inside, intricate carvings depicted the rain god as a majestic feathered serpent, a powerful symbol held in the highest reverence by the Maya. The chosen girl was dressed in the finest garments available, adorned with beautiful makeup, and waited inside the temple. Standing beside her were strong young men clad in gleaming golden armor. They served as ceremonial escorts, responsible for accompanying what the Maya called the bride of the rain god to the site of the ritual. Just imagine the scene. As dawn broke, ceremonial music echoed throughout the plaza. Maya priests began chanting sacred incantations, offering prayers and blessings for the young girl. Before beginning the procession, she was given a special drink that the Maya believed would calm her mind and drive away fear, preparing her to enter the world of the gods. Soon afterward, she was placed upon an elaborately decorated ceremonial litter, and the procession began. Hundreds of people formed a long line along the roughly 1,310-foot pathway leading from the temple to the sacred cenote. The pounding of drums, the sound of ceremonial horns, and the voices of worshippers filled the air, creating an atmosphere that was both sacred and deeply unsettling. When the procession finally reached the edge of the cenote, the ritual entered its final moment. The young escorts would lift the girl high above their heads before casting her into the depths below. As she plunged into the dark waters, the drums immediately grew louder while the crowd erupted into dancing and singing in celebration. At the same time, wealthy members of the community continuously threw gold, silver, precious gemstones, and countless valuable objects into the cenote, hoping to earn the rain god's favor. They prayed for the safety of their families, abundant harvests, and prosperous lives. Just imagining such a scene is enough to send chills down your spine, isn't it? Even more astonishing is the fact that this extraordinary ritual continued for centuries, finally coming to an end in the mid-16th century when European explorers and colonizers advanced into Central America. Chichen Itza, along with many other Maya cities, gradually declined and was eventually abandoned. From that point on, the human sacrifices at the sacred cenote officially ceased, leaving behind countless mysterious legends. Centuries later, archaeologists began excavating the site and made a discovery that stunned the world. At the bottom of the sacred cenote, they uncovered the remains of more than 100 people, along with enormous quantities of gold, silver, precious jewels, pottery, and other priceless artifacts that had been cast into the water during these ancient ceremonies. These discoveries help confirm that the accounts describing Maya sacrificial rituals were not merely legends. They were historical events that had truly taken place. Today, The sacred cenote at Chichen Itza remains one of the world's most famous and mysterious archaeological sites. Every skeleton recovered and every artifact brought up from its depths tells another chapter in the story of the Maya civilization, a civilization celebrated for its remarkable achievements and profound knowledge, yet also remembered for rituals that continue to leave modern people in awe and disbelief. And perhaps beneath the still waters of that ancient cenote, even more secrets remain hidden, waiting for future generations of scientists to uncover. Lost language, unearthed from the ruins of the Hittite Empire. Recent excavations at the ancient city of Boğazköy Hattusha in Turkey have uncovered a clay tablet containing a previously unknown Indo-European language. Translating and identifying this language will take considerable time because no one has ever encountered it before. However, experts have confirmed that it belongs to the Anatolian branch of the Indo-European language family and is likely the language once spoken in the land of Kalashma, an ancient region located in what is now northwestern Turkey. Boğazköy Hattusha, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was once the capital of the Hittite Empire during the Late Bronze Age, from approximately 1650 to 1200 BC. Excavations have been carried out at the site for more than a century, under the direction of the German Archaeological Institute. According to the University of Würzburg, since excavations first began, researchers have discovered nearly 30,000 cuneiform clay tablets. These tablets have provided the archaeological community with an extraordinary amount of information about the history, society, economy, and religious traditions of the Hittites and their neighboring civilizations. Most of the texts found on the clay tablets at the site are written in Hittite, the oldest known Indo-European language. However, this year's excavation uncovered ritual hymns written in this previously unknown language. Andreas Schochner, the director of this year's excavation, explained, "The newly discovered language is written in cuneiform. It uses the same writing system employed by the Hittites. The text is part of a longer document that begins in the Hittite language." Based on modern linguistic research, more than 3 billion people today speak Indo-European languages, a family of related languages believed to share a common prehistoric ancestor. The clay tablets discovered at Boğazköy Hattusha were all written in cuneiform, the world's oldest known writing system. Cuneiform was developed by the ancient Sumerians in Mesopotamia more than 5,000 years ago. It was used to write many of the languages of the ancient world, including Sumerian, Babylonian, Old Persian, and now the newly identified language known as Kalashmaic. The Hittite Empire reached the height of its power during the 14th century BC under the rule of King Shupalululiuma I. At its peak, the empire controlled most of the Anatolian peninsula, covering much of modern-day Turkey as well as parts of Upper Mesopotamia. It was one of the dominant powers of the Late Bronze Age before eventually being conquered by the Assyrian Empire. The Hittites may also have developed the earliest known constitutional monarchy. They are mentioned several times in the Bible as a people who lived among the ancient Israelites. Archaeologists have made several remarkable discoveries related to the Hittite Empire. Just last month, researchers uncovered the astonishingly well-preserved skeletal remains of 2 individuals from the Bronze Age Hittite Empire. The remains were found at Tavşanlı Mound, often referred to as the heart of Western Anatolia, in western Turkey. Researchers also discovered preserved traces of skin and brain tissue on the skeletons. These soft tissues survived through a process of carbonization that occurred when the bodies were exposed to extremely high temperatures. Archaeologists believe the 2 individuals were burned to death during an attack on the city, and the remains have been dated to around 1700 BC. Last year, nearly 250 hieroglyphs were also discovered at the Hattusa archaeological site inside the Yerkapi tunnel. Archaeologists believe the tunnel was most likely used for religious rituals, and the hieroglyphs are estimated to have been painted approximately 3,500 years ago. Schochner, who has studied both last year's hieroglyphic discovery and this year's Kalashmaic language discovery, said, "We identified a total of 249 Anatolian hieroglyphs here, although they are not all completely different. Overall, we can divide them into 8 groups. These symbols provide new insights into the society of the time. Because they were painted rather than carved, we need to interpret them using a wider range of methods. We believe they were created quickly, which may also help us understand them more efficiently." What do you think about this incredible discovery? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. the estate where the founder of the Roman Empire passed away. In April 2024, excavations carried out by researchers from the University of Tokyo in Japan on the northern slopes of Mount Vesuvius led to a remarkable archaeological discovery. The team uncovered part of an estate they believe was once used by Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, who ruled from 27 BC until his death in AD 14 at the age of 75. Historical records indicate that Augustus died at an estate located north of Mount Vesuvius, and that the building was later converted into a memorial honoring the emperor. However, the exact location of this estate has remained unknown. Back in the 1930s, researchers discovered the ruins of a Roman-style villa in Somma Vesuviana, a town on the northern foothills of Mount Vesuvius. At the time, the structure was initially believed to have belonged to Augustus. Mount Vesuvius, of course, is the famous volcano whose catastrophic eruption in AD 79 destroyed the Roman cities of Pompeii, Herculaneum, and several other settlements. However, when the University of Tokyo launched an excavation project at the site in 2002, archaeologists determined that the villa actually dated no earlier than the 2nd century AD. In other words, it had been built after the famous volcanic eruption. More recent excavations conducted by the Japanese research team in 2023 uncovered evidence of an even older estate buried beneath the 2nd century structure. Scientists now believe that this earlier building may have been the very estate where Emperor Augustus spent his final days and died. Radiocarbon dating, along with analysis of the volcanic pumice that covered the estate, revealed that the building remained in use during the first half of the 1st century AD. It was later buried beneath volcanic material during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. This marks the first time archaeological evidence of an estate associated with Augustus has been discovered north of Mount Vesuvius. Archaeologists also identified a furnace-like structure within the ruins, which may have been connected to a bathing facility. Radiocarbon dating of charcoal recovered from the structure indicates that the estate was occupied during the first half of the 1st century AD. However, the furnace appears to have fallen out of use after Emperor Augustus passed away. This finding closely matches historical accounts, which state that Augustus's estate was no longer used following his death. Although these latest discoveries provide compelling clues, researchers emphasize that much more work is needed before the site can be definitively identified as the estate where the emperor died. Even so, the recent findings challenge the long-held belief that the northern foothills of Mount Vesuvius suffered only minor damage during the AD 79 eruption and were affected far less severely than settlements to the southeast, such as Pompeii. Dear friends, our journey of discovery comes to an end here. I hope these fascinating archaeological discoveries have given you a completely new perspective on history, a world that still holds countless mysteries waiting to be solved. So, which discovery impressed or surprised you the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to share them in the comments below. And if you enjoy mysterious stories from history and archaeology, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Ancient History channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.